Hi everyone, welcome to Life Skills with Louie. I'm Louie and today we are talking about missing behavior analysis. If you haven't watched the introduction to behavior analysis, please do that to understand this area better. And if you haven't watched the introduction to the connecting to clear section, which we're in, that may be helpful as well. Finally, if you haven't watched the introduction to the entire video series, it'll help you understand all 5 sections and when to use each section and how to navigate through them. So, to dive right in, missing behavior analysis is a skill that I learned in dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT. I'm pretty sure it's also in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, but I learned it through DBT. And in DBT, it's a specific handout that never quite flowed well for me, so I created a visual that people tended to get pretty well. And here it is. The idea with missing behavior analysis is that instead of going to either of the extremes to try to make something go away, like judging yourself and calling yourself names for not doing a behavior, or being in denial and just not thinking about it, you actually break down the situation and understand what is the barrier that's stopping you from doing a behavior. In this visual, we've got a stick figure person who has the best of intentions and is smiling and ready to do a certain behavior, and then it never happened. So they're a sad stick figure at the end of the day, and the behavior never happened. The question becomes why? We have these 4 possible barriers, and you find the barrier that's currently present, you work through it, and then you may find there's another barrier. Eventually, you've worked through all the barriers. So to dive right into it, the first possible barrier is awareness. This is only relevant if you are asking someone else to do something or someone is asking you to do something. So let's say someone is saying, hey, can you take out the trash? And it doesn't happen. You do have to check to see if when you asked someone or they asked you, did the message get through? Did you hear them? And did you get the directions correctly? If not, the barrier is awareness of what was asked, and the solution is to work on communication, find a way to communicate more clearly about what needs to happen. So that's barrier 1. The second barrier has to do with either low motivation, high threat, or both. The situation where you have low motivation, high threat, or both will decrease your willingness to do something. I'm going to use the example of exercise to talk a little more about this. So let's say someone told you you should exercise, or you're having a thought, yeah, I'm supposed to exercise, or some part of you is kind of judging you. Oh, I need to exercise for X, Y reason, but it doesn't actually matter to you. You're not really feeling why exercise is truly important to you. So you may have low motivation, and that won't really work well as far as doing a behavior. So working with a therapist, talking to friends, looking online about ways to increase motivation, looking at the video about motivation, practicing dialogue, restructuring inside to understand what your different motivations are. These are all ways to increase your motivation. And always consider, if you don't already, having a therapist on board to help you talk through this and understand all the different motivations you have and what really matters to you. Because ultimately, you don't have to do anything. The forced march approach doesn't really work well. So starting to understand what's in it for you is very important. In regards to threat, even if you had high motivation, if you also had a high feeling of threat about a certain behavior, again, we'll use exercise. Let's say you've tried to exercise before and you've done types of exercise that have caused you a lot of injuries, or you remember being told to exercise and being criticized even as you were doing it. So it was a really unpleasant experience. You may have the sense, if you think about exercise, this feeling of threat comes up. That makes it very hard to move forward. So the idea is to learn how to decrease the threat. There could be practical things that go into decreasing the threat. It could have to do with doing a type of exercise that's much safer. It also could have to do with your perception. Maybe the exercise is technically safe, but inside your mind is telling you this is not safe. For that, you might need to use some accuracy restructuring from getting to great, or you might need to use some dialogue restructuring. And of course, always consider talking with a therapist about all of this so that you're able to decrease the threat. So if you have some motivation and not very much threat, then this barrier probably won't be there and you get to the next one, which is right thought at the right time. So you want to do something, it's not too threatening, and then it doesn't happen. Did you think about it? Was there a cue at an appropriate time? This is one that's like overlooked and people don't realize, and then they're like, wow, no. Yeah, of course I want to work out, but I never really picked a time to do it. Or I picked a time that will never work. Or I picked a time, it would have worked, but there was no cue, so I didn't think of it at that time. And so if that's the issue, looking at your schedule, finding out where you can carve out time to do something, and then having the thought occur at that time with some kind of reminder or a sticky note or some way someone calls you at that time to remind you to do the behavior at the right time. So that addresses that barrier. Finally, if the thought occurred at the right time, it was an appropriate time to do it, okay, it's time to exercise, and then you still didn't. The question is, what happened next, right after that? That's where you'll find the final possible barrier. You're very close to doing the behavior. And so let's say you set the alarm went off. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to work out. And then at that time, there's always a friend in the next room who's playing a video game and they say, hey, why don't you come play the video game? And you say, oh, well, that sounds a little more fun. And so then you go and play the video game instead. So you have to solve that issue, that barrier, and think about problem solving, which is a video in getting to great. Think about talking to a therapist, a friend, brainstorming, coming up with ideas of how you can figure out a solution. For this example with a friend in video games, maybe you say to the friend, hey, can you just make sure not to ask me about the video games? Or you pick a different time, or you tell the friend, how about we play video games later in the day? And so then that'll be my exercise time. And maybe the friend says, yeah, great idea. Maybe I'll exercise with you. So this is a very helpful and proactive approach to solving these barriers so that you actually reach the point where you do the missing behavior that you're trying to bring into your life. Thank you.